Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. A happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone as well. It's a Thursday edition of the podcast. We are getting closer to that weekend, and it's a great day because the Tampa Bay Lightning won last night. So the series is tied up at 1-1. But we're here to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers today. We're going to answer all the questions from you, the fans, the Pewter people. My name is Matt Matera, but joined with me, more importantly, is someone that the fans have been asking for. They said, we want her. No, we need her on the show, and she is extremely busy covering your Tampa Bay Lightning and moving to a new place. So she is moving mountains just to be here to cover the Bucs with everyone on the show today. It is none other than Casey Hudson. Casey, how are you doing on this lovely Thursday?
I feel like I need to jump in a ring with my fist pumping and stuff. I'm good. I mean, I woke up this morning and chose violence and chaos. Nothing less exciting. The violence
and chaos on
a
Thursday.
Yes, the violence being no other human being besides myself would wait to pack and move and do things until the day of moving, which is lovely. And then my mom calls and she's like, I need you to drive the U-Haul. I was like, we're trusting me with the U-Haul on such short notice. So chaos and violence. Luna says hi.
Luna says hello. Hello, Luna. We are a dog-friendly podcast as well, too. So everyone that's got a dog, we love you. Not as much of a cat guy, but if you got a cat, that's great too. As long as you're taking care of a pet and you got a companion, that's great. But yeah, driving a U-Haul, first of all, moving in general absolutely sucks. It's a top 5 worst thing to do. I would rather stay in an apartment that I absolutely hate than have to pick up and move all of my stuff over again.
And getting it figured out.
And moving a U-Haul, driving that thing, it's not fun. Because one, if you mess up anything a little bit, they'll hit you with this fee or that fee or whatever. And I drive a Honda, so I'm used to kind of a smaller car. But when you move into a different big type of car, it's not easy. There's an adjustment period for sure.
Oh, for sure. And it makes I drive an SUV, but still the last minute. But the funny part is that some of our Pewter fans know I'm a military brat. So my mom is just ashamed that I don't know how to pack or drive U-Hauls. She was driving 27-inch things and all things. So I'm situated. This is my new humble abode, not filled up yet, waiting for my roomie to come and we'll get organized and drink the tequila and do what we do.
Very cool. Yeah.
Focus back on the Lightning. So yeah, I'm psyched.
Yeah. Are you going to be at the game? I'm assuming they play tomorrow.
I'll be doing pregame tomorrow. So actually, I'm hopping on Puck Drop Live with Kaylee Mizell on Valley Sports before the game, and then I'll be rushing back home to watch the game from home. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Game 3. That was such an awesome game last night. I mean, pretty much everything that the Maple Leafs did to the Lightning in Game 1, the Lightning did that to Toronto in Game 2. So it was awesome to see. Yep. We'll see what happens in Game 3. It's going to be very intense. I know Bucs fans are going to be excited for it, and we will get to the Bucs in a second. But it's playoff hockey. We got to talk about that a little bit.
Exactly. And funny enough, I was on the press conferences earlier, and I was hyped by the conversations that were taking place with the Lightning head coach and Alex Killorn. So we'll see how the scales tip. But Pewter Report enjoys talking about hockey a little bit, guys. Just a backstory for the Pewter fans, because we've got multiple fans in the NHL, but not all Lightning fans on the Pewter team. So it gets aggressive in the Pewter group chat. That's where our really awful colors come out to one another. We beat up on JC a lot because he's a Bruins fan.
And the funny thing too is JC is posting the chats pictures of the Bruins with the Stanley Cup. Out of all the teams that we root for, JC's team is they've gone the longest without winning the cup. The Bruins won in 2010, 11 or something like that. But the Lightning obviously went back to back, and then John and I are Penguins fans, and they won in 2009, but they went back to back in 2016 and 2017. So JC is on the long end in terms of winning teams. But like we said, Lightning game coming up tomorrow. Casey's going to be doing the pregame, so make sure you watch that. It's going to be pumped up watching that. And one way to get pumped up is by drinking Celsius Energy drinks, the proud sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast, as you see all of the pictures on the logo there. Celsius, what haven't we said about it already that you don't already know? They have a billion different flavors. It's an energy drink, but it doesn't have all of the pitfalls of an energy drink. All right, you get that energy that you need if you want to go work out, get through your day, have a work day, whatever you need to do a long drive. I did a 3-hour drive this morning, so Celsius obviously helps with that a lot. But more important than that, there's no crash. You get none of that energy drink jitters that comes with other energy drinks that you have. And the flavors of Celsius are second to none. I mean, you seen the picture there. You got tropical vibe, you got peach mango, you got watermelon, you got kiwi. The sparkling orange is my favorite because it tastes just like orange soda. I don't even really drink orange soda. I just think of Keenan and Kel, who loves orange soda. Kel loves orange soda, but it tastes like that orange soda. I'm also rocking a strawberry dragon fruit right now, which I will show once we get off the screen. But make sure you're getting Celsius, whether it's at a bodega, gas station, a Walmart, or any other place near you. Celsius is all over the place. And you can buy it on Amazon, too. And if you buy them on Amazon, you can get a discount as well, too. So load up on those Celsius. They come very quickly, and everyone wants them. So as soon as you get them, that's as soon as they're off the shelves as well, too. So make sure you go to Amazon.com to pick out a Celsius. You won't be disappointed because there are flavors upon flavors upon flavors upon flavors.
And the good ones come off the shelf so quick. You end up like hunting around. I think sometimes like JC has to send us pictures and be like, this one's available at this gas station. And we're like, going now. So.
Yeah. Celsius, JC finds like all of the Celsius in the wild. Like there's so many flavors, like the Arctic one.
Yes,
is a new one.
Announced.
Yeah, Scott was drinking it on the podcast yesterday as I'm about to crack open my Celsius strawberry dragon fruit for the people at home. Tall boy, Cinco de Mayo, go big or go home.
On theme, right on theme. I had 2 of the BCAA tropical twist this morning, so I hit my 2 a day of the Celsius.
There you go, very nice. And also, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the fast protein bars. Again, go to Amazon.com. Make sure you get them. The flavoring, again, just like the energy drink themselves, the flavoring tastes on point, and they don't break in your hands like other granola bars. I was saying the other day, like, God forbid if you eat a granola bar in someone else's home, you're just going to make a mess. You'll never get invited back. But that's not the case if you have a Celsius fast bar, because that's the way it goes. I saw someone in the chat, too. Shout out Richard. He said, hey, Matt and K. Huddy. Went to Star Wars night at Disneyland here in Southern California. All right, we got a California fan in the group. Love going to Cali. Go there. Been going there like once a year. Love it over there. But he said Southern California Celsius helped me push through until 2 a.m. That's wild. Because I haven't been to Disney in a while because like I'm older. I don't have kids and stuff. But if you walk through a theme park, especially in a warm weather state, like whether it's California or Florida where we live, that's exhausting. Like that takes a long time, Yeah. So shout out to you.
Over the next day, just by walking around.
Exactly. So I can't imagine going till 2 a.m. I'm sure it was a very fun time. Obviously, Star Wars is a huge thing. People love that. Yesterday was May the 4th be with you. Today, Cinco de Mayo. But shout out Richard, drinking that Celsius, getting you through the day with everything that went on at Disney. All right, let's get into the Bucs, Casey.
Yeah.
Scott and I have been on the show all week. We've been talking a lot about this draft, a lot about the NFC South opponents and their draft. We talked a little bit about the current roster on Tuesday as well, too. And, of course, we are going to answer fans' questions from the fans. So make sure you get up there in the chats. Let us know what you want to talk about, whether it's the current roster or the draft itself, too. So we're happy to answer anything you got regarding the Bucs. But Casey, we haven't heard from you yet about just you were on the live draft show, of course, and that was a ton of fun. But in terms of now you've had a couple of days to digest on it. Luna seems to be very opinionated about the draft as well, too. Now that you've had a couple of days to think about it, marinate on it, what are your overall thoughts about how the Bucs addressed this draft, how they went about it? And you don't have to specifically give a grade. You can if you would like to, but just give us your general thoughts about the draft.
Luna has an opinion too, clearly. Okay, so yes, Luna, we know. So funny enough, I hopped on the JP Peterson show yesterday. He asked me to grade the draft, and I after thinking about it for a couple of days, dramatically, I probably would have given it a D on Saturday.
Really? Okay.
That's dramatically. Luna, stop, please. But yesterday I gave it a C plus, B minus. My biggest thing, and you and I kind of chatted about this on the live show, was the fact that I really thought that they were going to pick up a wide receiver. Stop it. And I thought that they were going to add to that depth only because that depletion that they went through this past, season was pretty rough, and a lot of it was injury prone. So I thought they were going to add a lot more protection there. The first 2 picks, awesome. I've seen how you guys have gone in depth about Luka Decky, and like Logan Hall, we kind of all knew was going to be probably one of the more prominent additions. And after that, I didn't see the 2 tight ends, although I did want 1 tight end. And then the punter threw for a whirl, but I know a lot of people have an opinion about Bradley Pinion. So, to each their own. But yeah, I just and I didn't understand the trade out to get Logan Hall in the first, and they could have done some other moves there and what they could have stacked in terms of, that D line. So I just had a different idea of the approach of the draft, which Jason Light's a genius. I have so much respect for him. So these days it probably does sound disrespectful to be like C minus or C plus, but it's the wide receiver just really threw me. And not like I was only trying to go for my guy, Christian Watson, but after doing the in-depth research on the receivers, there are so many guys there that I thought could have been a nice addition to the Bucs, because that wide receiver 4 spot has such a big question mark next to it. Even the wide receiver 3, we don't know what Chris Godwin's going to look like on the return. You need somebody who's going to be reliable in that 3 spot. And then, Russell Gage is going to be exciting to incorporate in the Bucs system. But then after that, then what? They don't trust Scotty. And then the line goes, we can go down the line all day. So I just was expecting a lot different of a draft for at least those first 4 picks.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and you make a good point about wide receiver, because yes, they did bring in Russell Gage, but remember, they're also they don't have Antonio Brown anymore. So essentially, Russell Gage, when I say replaces, I mean takes the depth chart spot of Antonio Brown. I'm not saying skill and talent wise that he's replacing Antonio Brown, because that's very tough to do. Brown is one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, regardless of what you think about he does off the field.
Yeah.
And I guess on the field, because what he did on the field was that he just left. So it kind of does affect.
So it all goes back to off the field.
It does. Yeah, exactly. But you signed Gage, and I think we all thought that was a good signing there. He could end up being the number 2, depending on what happens with Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
But even before that, even after signing Russell Gage and still going to the draft, we talked about, and Scott talked about this a ton too, about flooding the wide receiver position, adding more depth because of the way that all the injuries went down. And the Bucs didn't necessarily do that. Again, Gage replaces Antonio Brown, but outside of that, they re-signed Brashad Perriman. Okay, Perriman was already there. And then I understand the Bucs had so many injuries at wide receiver, like including Perriman and Cyril Grayson Jr. The odds are that probably won't necessarily happen again too. But when they've shown that they don't have that, I guess, trust anymore in someone like Scotty Miller, who I know you love. I love Scotty as well, too. I would like to see Scotty out there more, but we don't make the decisions. The coaching staff clearly doesn't want to see Scotty out there. It looks like his role is going to be a gunner. So it still does kind of look a little thin at wide receiver outside of the big 3. And then whatever you want to say about Tyler Johnson or Brashad Perriman, they could duke it out for 4th and 5th, along with Jalen Darden as well. And Scotty Miller, you never know. He could be working almost triple time as hard as he has in the past to make sure he gets a roster spot. But to your point, with all the wide receivers on the board, sad to see Christian Watson go to the Packers, but you will get to see him this year in Tampa, because the Packers do come to Raymond James Stadium this year on the schedule.
Kills me. I'm still so heartbroken.
And there's Logan Hall too. I like the pick. Like overall, I would give the Bucs a solid B, somewhere like in between a B plus and a B, but there's no grade in between that. I like the Hall pick because it fits a need for what Tampa Bay overall, what they need along the defensive line, because it doesn't look like Ndamukong Suh is coming back. But in terms of like, was he the best defensive tackle possible? I don't think so. Like Devontae Wyatt, I probably had rated a little bit more, but that's what Todd Bowles spoke about. He said that we had them pretty much on the same level. So if that's the case, then sure, trade out, get more picks, get your guy there. In the second round, I would have really liked to see Lewis Seen of the Georgia safety go to the Bucs.
And
He
I
was
feel
still
like
on
I
the
started
board
to get
then.
hyped for that,
Yeah, that would have been awesome. Don't make a scene, but Jamel Dean, that's his thing. But then, I don't know. I'm just making a stupid joke.
That's a song too, though.
Is it?
Yeah, I just can't remember specifically the song. Luna, lay down. I'll remember the song and I'll throw it out there. I'll put it out there quickly. What's up, Emily? But yeah, there was a few players that we got very hype on that I feel could have been an appropriate, maybe first round grab. No hate towards the trade out. I mean, it still ended up being beneficial, but I just don't understand the semantics of not trying to add depth to that wide receiver class, doing the 2 tight end set. I do respect the fact that it's 2 different kinds of tight ends. That's for sure. But you can tell they're rebuilding that group, which is also something we've talked about here on the pod when we've thought about like where they might need the most help. And tight end one of the things that I chose. So like I said, less dramatically, I agree with you. I think a B-, B+ is like a good place to put it. But I was just really disappointed in some of the picks. The punter reaction from John and Josh was the funniest thing. I'm not even sure if they were talking about the Bucs draft for a minute. I had to like rewind it. And then of course I was losing service because I was driving over to you guys when that took place. But yeah, the punter part threw me for a loop, but I'm excited for these glass eaters that we're adding in and this blocking scheme that's really about to unload or supposed to unload for the Bucs in this offseason. So I don't hate it too much. I get more acclimated with it as I go, but I would have added, I'm a big fan and I'm really looking forward to Zion McCollum. I think a lot of people are. So not to just kind of sound like I'm hopping on board in the bandwagon with it, but between speed, and I've been begging for speed in the secondary for months. That was the one thing that I've talked about forever.
You tweeted about that like right after the pick went on. And McCollum, for me, he is my second favorite pick that the Bucs made throughout this entire draft. It's clear that special teams was an issue last year. All right. There's no question about that. And we're not talking about like kicker. Ryan Suckup was fine, but obviously Bradley Pinion was a problem towards the end of the year. They addressed that by drafting the punter, but also punt coverage. Like we all love Grant Stewart. He's been awesome, but they need more than that. They can't just rely on Grant Stewart to make every single play. So I love the fact that they get McCollum. He brings in that speed instantly, 4.3 speed. Everyone saw the video of John Spytek saying that they had a local scout tell him, if you run that again, we will draft you. And lo and behold, that they did. But I think it's an awesome situation for McCollum and for the Bucs as well, of course, where he can make an impact right away on special teams. Get his name out there. Fans will know him. Fans will like him because I think he's going to be an X factor on special teams with that speed at gunner. And we also heard from special teams coach Keith Armstrong that they're going to put everyone back there as far as the return game. He said he wants to see more from Jalen Darden. I know that makes you sick to your stomach. But he said he's going to give opportunities to everyone back there. And 4.3 speed is 4.3 speed, all right? If you get someone fast, that's half the battle. That's Jalen Darden right there. He's got speed. He needs everything else, and he needs to stop falling. So why not give McCollum that chance? And I think he's in a great spot, too, in terms of being a corner. He was talented at Sam Houston State. Sure, a little less competition, but he got a lot of interceptions. He's got that height and length that the Bucs front office absolutely loves. You see that with Carlton Davis, and you see that with Jamel Dean as well, too. And he's a physical corner, which I absolutely love. I don't like these corners, and this goes against, because Darrelle Revis is like my favorite cornerback of all time, former Buccaneer great, future New York Jet Hall of Famer. He didn't tackle as much either. He just, no one can read a play like Darrelle Revis can. And that was the issue with some other corners in this draft, like Elam out of Florida. But that's not the case here with Zion McCollum. He's physical. He'll get after you. And I think he fits this Bucs defense great. He's not going to start right away, but we'll see what happens with Jamel Dean and SMB. He's more of an outside corner. So if Jamel Dean gets hurt, it could be Zion McCollum right there. So I think it was a great pick by the Bucs that late in the draft.
I absolutely agree. And you make a good point with the whole special teams thing. They need that. We ended up having to do a few articles just kind of emphasizing on what the 3 games that special teams actually showed up and performed and did well. One of those 3, Scotty Miller is the gunner. So not putting it back on Scotty Miller, but controlled speed is probably the best way I'd like to put it, because like you said, Darden's fast and that's great, but you can be fast and do too much and it's ineffective for your team as well as yourself. So if he has a more controlled speed to him, very beneficial on special teams. And I like the depth in which, you know, he might be called upon to pull up to that cornerback spot and help out or learn, or, you know, specific games he can really start getting groomed at that position and alleviate maybe Sean Murphy bunting. Who knows? Because he's going to be under a microscope this season. I think that a lot of us are fully aware of that. SMB has a lot to prove in terms of being consistent and a player that can really perform in that defense. And now he's got some decent heat behind him to probably get that done. So McCollum is probably one of my favorite picks for sure.
If you had to pick one, who would you say is your favorite?
All right, I wasn't expecting Gadecki only because the offseason picks or the free agent signings, you know, to add to the offensive line. But call it goofy. I'm really fascinated to unpack this glass eater situation. I want to know what that looks like, because if this kid is ready to come off the line and stuff guys and give a guy like Tom Brady time in the pocket, that's going to be insane to watch. You know, look at how many fans just fell in love with Tristan Wirfs over, you know, his physical and athletic capability. So this glass eater, I'm highly anticipating something wild and exciting to watch on that line. And a lot of people have kind of alluded to the fact that he could be somebody stepping in and starting right away too. So to have that much confidence in someone to protect a guy like Tom Brady, I'm pretty psyched about Luke Gadecki. You guys kind of broke down. I know John was fired up after watching his film, and you know, whenever you can see something on film that can translate into a team system and you can kind of picture his role and how he's going to contribute, then that's something to be excited about rather than waiting so much. So between John's excitement and everyone else and him being that number 2 pick, I would say Luke Gadecki's up there for me.
Yeah, I was sitting next to John after the live draft show was done on Friday, and he started watching the tape of Gadecki. And he was losing it. Like, I couldn't even focus on what I had to do because he was like, oh, my God, like, look at this. Like, he was so excited. And John is an extremely fair grader and judge when it comes to watching tape. But he tends to slant a little more negative, I would say, than and John is a very positive person overall. I mean, you see what he's doing in his life now, what he's doing in his post-media career, and he's very positive, and he's helped you and I both so much. But in terms of like grading and stuff like that, you really have to earn John's seal of approval, which he absolutely did. And I think it's even more interesting too, because when the Bucs first made the pick, like Gadecki wasn't really on my radar too much. I'll admit that, because of, you know, having Stinney and Nick Leverett there and Hainsey going to be competing for the guard position too. So when you hear that the Bucs traded up 3 spots to get a guy at a position that they already had, and it looked like that was going to be the competition for training camp and guys that they already believe in, I first questioned it a little bit just because of the position itself. But again, looking at the tape, reading about him, hearing his press conference, the glass eater stuff. I mean, can you just imagine him lining up next to Ryan Jensen next season if Gadecki wins the job? Pray for all the defensive tackles and nose tackles out there, because it is going to be it's going to be nasty for everyone else, because they're going to bring an attitude that this Bucs offensive line already has. So you're just adding to it. You know, you're hitting the Nas tank in the Fast and the Furious and just taking it
to Nas tank.
Yeah, to
That's
another
such
level.
a great way to put it. And I saw so many tweets too about people getting hype about the new Smash Bros and whatnot between Gadecki and Jensen. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm very much looking forward to, and I feel like it's going to live up to the hype. And I think most people on the show know, as well as you guys being my team, like, I'm the first person to question everything for no reason whatsoever, just to get down to the bottom of some things. So when it comes to Gadecki, I think he's given enough behind the hype to show that he's going to really take off this season. So, and somebody made a point as to the fact that Jason Light just has this tendency to pull these O-line guys from these small schools, and they, you know, how that ends up translating and what that turns into. So that's the other thing. I mean, we all are very supportive of the fact that Jason Light is brilliant at what he does and how he tends to make these meticulous, spot on, spontaneous picks. So for him to pick a Hideki out of that patch, it's just, there's a lot revolving around it that makes me excited about this particular player. But if it's not Hideki, it's definitely Zion McCollum. I would love to see him earn a bigger role on the Bucs team, and he's somebody who could really develop into a strong player down the stretch, but special teams is a great start.
It's funny too, because Hideki playing at Central Michigan, that's like the biggest school out of the small schools that that Light has picked from, with Ali Marpet and Alex Kappa and guys like that. Even Ryan Jensen on the team now. They obviously didn't draft Ryan Jensen, but he also comes from a small school. Let's get through a couple comments here, and we appreciate everyone commenting. Make sure you like the podcast as well too. It's important for our algorithm that we get that. It'll help us with our YouTube channel. Candace here. K Huddy keeps it all the way real. We need another receiver. A lot of wide receiver talk. Alien Macedon says the Bucs wide receiver room is questionable. Tyler Johnson and Jalen Darden can be cut. They're not, though. Rashad Perriman, Cyril Grayson is the best options. Now, that's interesting because we questioned Tyler Johnson getting cut last year. I wrote a story about it. At the end of the day, I didn't think he was going to get cut. But nonetheless, Bruce Arians was not happy with them. And BA obviously isn't the coach anymore. He's in the front office. But he was not happy that Tyler Johnson didn't go into some of the OTAs, the organized team activities, which are optional. But when you're a young player that's kind of still on the cusp, Bruce Arians wanted to see him there. There's questions about his weight. Bruce Arians had some issues with that, or that he wasn't in shape yet. Jalen Darden, again, not the best rookie year, but it was a rookie season. I think it's way too early to cut bait on him. Perriman, a veteran guy that the Bucs coaching staff trusts. I mean, he obviously played there in 2019 and then came back last season, had the touchdown in overtime against the Bills. I don't really trust Rashad Perriman too much. I just think, he's past his prime. He didn't really give too much production to the team outside of the touchdown, which was an infamous play, but I think that was his only catch of the game too. Cyril Grayson Jr. I'm very high on because he was ascending up until getting hurt. But Casey, your overall thoughts of the back half of the wide receiver room, we'll say.
Well, the only reason I start laughing is because the minute that you mentioned Cyril Grayson, I just picture you going off at the end of the Jets game when you and John were doing the in-game commentary. It's still one of the best videos I have ever seen. But okay, so you and I agree on a lot, and then that one little thing. Don't worry about Luna, guys. She's torturing Milo to be her friend. But for me, Tyler Johnson, I think he made a solid point there. Bruce Arians was irritated with him for not going to OTAs. When you're fighting for a position and you don't show up acting like an entitled athlete, you have to show that you're eager to be there, you're eager to learn, and you're eager to earn that spot. If you're not showing up to OTAs as a brand new guy on the team, that speaks volumes to a coach or anyone of authority. So that alone, to see that, he didn't do OTA things, which is optional, but again, he could have learned so much, gotten extra reps there, done some work that could translate into some of the mishaps that he had on the field this coming season. So Tyler Johnson, I just need him to be dialed in focus. He has to take it seriously to go to the facility and work on his hands and work on those things that, he struggles with. Everybody between fans as well as the staff, his issue with separating from defenders on the field, that's a problem because when you're going up against tough defenses and, particular man coverages, you can't rely on Tyler Johnson, who's almost just about your wide receiver 3 or rotates out for your wide receiver 3. So that's a big question mark / no when you need a reliable set of guys. We kind of touched on it a little bit. As much as Evans is a complete athlete and he's one of the biggest factors to this Bucs team, another thing is that depending on who they face opponent-wise, Mike Evans is somewhat a decoy at this point in his career. He's always put in double coverage. He's always kind of locked in or drawing defenders away so that somebody else can get open, which is great. He's a team guy. He just wants to play his part, do his role. But then that leaves you with now the new addition, Russell Gage, and then an unreliable Tyler Johnson who can't separate from people, who has tendency to lose the ball while it's in the air. He just still has a lot of little moving pieces that he hasn't honed in yet, and he's going into what year of his NFL career?
Yeah.
Did His ball tracking, I was remembering what year he was in, but that's how much he just like kind of deflates my whole mentality. But yeah, his ball tracking skills and separation, I wouldn't rely on him as a coach. Scotty Miller, everybody knows I'm very high on Scotty Miller. That's my dude. I was always hoping and rooting for Scotty Miller to get more of an opportunity. There's no trust factor there. The coaches clearly are just not for it. Scotty's biggest role is going to be when the roster is depleted of wide receivers or special teams to kind of or swap in. That's what it looks like that's going to be. Everybody knows how I feel about Darden. I know you say that it's early to call it. If I'm being a nice human being for a minute, you're right. It's early. He just got situated. But off-season wise, yeah, they need to like tape his feet together and teach him how to run without doing the cha-cha slide. Oh. Pun intended. The cha-cha and the sliding. But yeah, he's got a lot of work to do. So I would love to know what his mentality is in this off season. I know that a lot of athletes have to tune out the noise and dial in, but he's got some work to do to make sure that he starts kind of honing what that is that he's going to bring to the Bucs team. So that's why I can't shake the fact that I'm so saddened that the Bucs didn't pick up a wide receiver, because you just have so many question marks down the roster once you get past Russell Gage. Brashad Perriman, everyone knows, love Perriman, was rooting for him equally as Scotty Miller. At some points, people thought I loved him more than Scotty, but he didn't make many catches. He dropped some very significant balls, but then he also, had that really big catch against the Bills, but that's only going to carry you so far. So out of that whole group, once you get past Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Russell Gage, the next guy that I would agree with you on 100% is Terrell Grayson. I think that he was just on a great trajectory. I think he was finding a lot of confidence. A lot of people have to realize he's coming from a track background and really find who he is in football. And I think he started to find that before that injury. So the injury wasn't super significant. I think he's somebody we can expect to see a little bit more out of this season.
He's mad funny on Twitter too. Like,
if
you ever see him,
personalities off the field.
He's like wearing a robe all day and just went golfing. Like, retirement's pretty fun, Tom Brady. He's like, I don't get why Brady came back. But speaking of Tom Brady, question here from Candace. They say, is Brady completely all in this year? He's been all about brand promotion this offseason. Tom Brady has very much been about his brand promotion. He's got the Brady brand. They've expanded into golf now too. But no one has ever been more motivated, locked in, dialed in, whatever you want to call it. No one works harder than Tom Brady. I have no doubts, no questions at all whatsoever about Tom Brady's work ethic, or if he's focused on this year. I mean, he retired and then decided to come back. If he was already retired, he obviously still had something, he still had that itch. He still had that competitive drive and that fire to be like, oh, you know what? Like, Tom Brady doesn't need to play. He has all the accolades, the history, and he makes a ton of money. And his wife makes a ton of money as well, too. Like, he doesn't need to keep playing. The Brady brand is going to be fine on his own and the TB12 method. So he wants to play. He's not going to be there at OTAs, but he hasn't been to OTAs in over like a decade, I think. Right. So there's no concern there. It's just, it's Brady. And he's got a great marketing team around him, too. Like, whether it's the TikToks, he had a hilarious TikTok today where something with Bieber about like talking about honesty. And then he was like,
oh my gosh, I cried.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, the play against the Raiders, it might've been a fumble. If I was a Raiders fan, like, it's absolutely hilarious what he said and everything. If I was a Raiders fan, I would be completely livid. I would be losing my mind, because that would be something as a fan, if that was my team that I root for, I don't know if I would still get over it. I bet you there are some Raiders fans that just got over it, and then Brady brings it up right then and there. So shout out to just Brady's overall team. Like, he's hilarious on social media. It's great. It's good to see this side of Brady.
Oh, it's fantastic to see. And I think I've tweeted it almost ad nauseum now, because it's like Tampa Tom there's so many layers to Tampa Tom. If anybody can tweet at Pewter Report or at me or at Matt and let us know anytime that Tom Brady was this funny in his career at the Patriots, I will send you something. I'll figure out something worth sending. I've never seen so much personality out of Tom Brady until he got to Tampa. And now he's doing TikToks, and they're actually funny.
Yeah, they
And
are funny.
I don't really laugh at like stupid stuff all the time, but I laugh at Tom Brady's stuff. And growing up with a mom who worked for the Miami Dolphins, despised the Patriots, which means my mother does not like Tom Brady until he showed more personality here in about 8 months in. I'm not be high on Tom Brady because I was raised way differently when it comes to Tom. So now I think that he's awesome. I think he's so much personality and he's hilarious. But I guess just to kind of build off of what you were saying, because you make such a good point. I think he would come out of retirement to not be serious about something. We're talking about one of the most competitive athletes in professional sports, period. So he's not going to come back and just tread lightly or just get it behind him or just do just enough. Like Tom Brady's back to compete. Tom Brady's back to, stack on methods that he got this season. You're also talking about a quarterback who broke how many different records this past season, and nobody's come close to it. So guess what he's about to do this entire season not by doing the bare minimum, but just doing bare minimum on the field. He's going to just continue to push those accolades and those awards and those records that much higher by showing up. So he's not a bare minimum kind of guy. I think that he's all in. I think he's all in to make a point. I also think that this team was kind of robbed of something very special because they were playing, not that they were playing extraordinarily well. They kind of had a better previous season, but they were facing a lot of adversity. I think that the drama that took place at the end of the season just really overwhelmed everybody in a different way. I think that caused a lot of mental fatigue. I think it took the joy out of a lot of things. I think it changed, just the vibe around the place. And when you kind of get into that mental funk because of something outside of your control or somebody, somebody else, that's going to leave you with a real fire in your belly when you come back or when you have another season ahead of you. And that situation, that mental obstacle is now eliminated. So it's up to this group of guys who they all seem very confident to play along one another to go for more, and they have the ability to do it. So Brady's all in. The promotion thing, I think it was you, me, Paul. Can we do 5 on here? It was definitely you, me, Paul, and John, but I feel like JC either rotated in or he was there somewhere. Yeah. But last game of the season when we were trying to debate whether or not Brady was going to retire, and I said, no, I didn't think he was going to retire. I don't think he could leave that season the way that he, leave it like that and feel good about it, number one. Number two, I was saying if he does happen to go, he's coming back and he's going to use his Brady brand and all the things he's got going on to be that campaign pusher and that slogan to, announce his comeback to the world. So I think he's just really playing into both the entertainment aspect of things as well as football, because when he really is hanging it up, then he's going to have so much to keep him not sitting on the couch in a row bored. Tom Brady's not going to be the kind of guy that's going to ever be okay with being bored.
He's going to have to do something. He might get into a different sport or just keep playing on the celebrity golf pro-am.
Something.
And the thing too is it's one thing when it's the off season and you're being funny, making videos, whatever. But he's funny in season too, like with the Bucs, where that would never ever be the case when he was with New England. But he comes here to Tampa, he's cracking jokes here and there, and always doing some fun stuff. We'll get to Mark's question here. Mark says, "I had suspicions about a punter being taken. 4th round was shocking. This draft will go down as the draft of the wide receiver and the draft of the punter. I agree 4th round was a little bit early, but Jake Camarda wasn't even the first punter taken off the board. The Ravens took a punter, and then punt god Matarazia got drafted a little bit later. I do think 4th round, slightly early, but punter, I don't think gets enough credit for how important a punter is to a team. Maybe not to the Bucs specifically because they're going to be on the field a lot. By the way, Tom Brady, 3 career punts. They had a video of it the other day on Twitter. It was obviously every single time it was like they were lined up like they were going to run a play in shotgun, and then he just punted it. 2 out of his 3 punts, I don't remember the third one, but 2 out of his 3 punts landed like within the 10 or the 5, and then one of his teammates was able to down the ball before it reached the end zone. So his punting stats, like inside the 10, are astronomical. They're actually really good. But I thought it's a little bit early. It clearly addresses a need, though, that the Bucs evidently find extremely important, and it's obvious at this point that they're going to move on from Bradley Pinion. And I hope Pinion is able to sign somewhere else because he really is a great guy. But they're going with Jake Camarda out of Georgia, obviously played in the national championship game. And I think what's important about him, just hearing from the Bucs front office, and Josh Capo wrote a great story about this too. He's inventing a new stat called Pina. It's very cool. Check out his article. It's more than just booting the ball deep. You got to have hang time to make sure your teammates are able to run down the field. So Grant Stewart, who already gets down there very quickly, can get there even faster because of the hang time. It's about pinning teams deep when maybe you're at midfield and you can't just boot it 60 yards. You have to punt it like 30 yards and get it within that 5-yard line. There's more to it than just
precision
hitting
and
it deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that sense, I'm okay with it, but just curious to get your thoughts on it.
No, that's a great point, actually, though, because, I mean, depending on the level of I don't want to say what kind of fan you are, but depending on how deep you choose to get into your sports excitement, you don't really pay attention to special teams and how significant that can be in certain turning points. So the people that do pay solid attention, a lot of fans were just very unhappy with Bradley Pinion's performance. I just think that 4 was still a little high. I feel like he kind of still would have been on the board because Jake wasn't really anyone that I heard much conversation revolving around. I was hearing more about Matt Azera. Is that his name properly?
I think it's Arazia.
Yeah, I would butcher his name. But I was hearing a little bit more buzz about him. So I think it was just more so the shock that there was that much knowledge about the punters coming out. But I do agree. I think that they don't give enough credit, and I think you explained that so well. I still just kind of would have lined up a few things differently in terms of the first picks. Like the punter would have came after pick 4 for me.
I just like this quote from Tom Bucs fan. Jordan's side, I think he's talking about Michael Jordan. Jordan's side golf bets were as high as PGA prizes. So this is a fun fact. I don't know how many fans know this, but years ago, like over a decade ago, Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. So there's on the PGA, they have a celebrity event at Pebble Beach every year. And celebrities will team up with each other, and you have teams of 2. So Tom Brady and Michael Jordan teamed up together. This is before Brady was like the GOAT. He had a couple of Super Bowls under his belt, but it wasn't, the Tom Brady that we see today. And they won, but they like annihilated the field. Like they won by 10 strokes or something like that. It wasn't even close.
I think that's fair though to put Michael Jordan and Tom Brady on the same team.
Yeah.
Even if he wasn't the guy that he is today. I mean, look, you win 2 Super Bowls in this league, and that's a big deal.
Yeah. Supply and demand here says OBJ mid-season is worth it. He's talking about Odell Beckham, who is still available in free agency. I believe he was at the Phoenix Suns game the other night. Shout out John Ledyard, who was a Suns fan. I believe they won. We talked about this before, so we don't have to get into this too much. I like Odell as a receiver. I think a lot of we'll just call it antics with Odell is a little overblown. It's nothing compared to what went on with Antonio Brown. Mm-hmm. He's still extremely talented. Maybe not the prime Odell, the one-handed catch type of Odell. But, I mean, he was great in the Super Bowl up until him getting hurt. But there lies the issue of he's not going to be available until the middle of the season. The Bucs are already going to have their team set. So in terms of adding him to the team, I think it would have to be more of an emergency situation, almost kind of like what they ran into last year towards the end of the year. Yep. But that was more of the playoffs, so it's kind of like too little too late at that point. I like Odell, but I think it would have to be more of a middle round thing. We talked about this on the live draft show a little bit, but I don't think it's going to happen.
No, and you said it right there. Between the fact that he's coming back from injury, he's not going to be back until midseason. Like all athletes, you have to have that evaluation period coming back from such a significant injury. So if he comes back and he can't really get his wheels going or be the OBJ that you hired him to be until the end of the season or season's over, then it wasn't worth the ticket. So, nah.
Yeah. One thing I got to get going better is my bowling game, which, of course, if I'm going to do my bowling, I'm going to do it at Pin Chasers. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, the owner of Pin Chasers, Anthony Peroni, is a huge Bucs fan. He has Bucs season tickets. So if you go to Pin Chasers, you're going to be supporting a fellow Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. Pinchasers is not only a good time to go with your friends, with your family for a night out, but they have something there for everyone. If you want to book a birthday party for your kids, they have the bowling lanes, but they also got an arcade center as well too. I understand kids, their attention span can only go for so long, so you can go and do multiple things there at the bowling alley. The food, as you see in the picture there, extremely underrated. I understand most bowling alleys, you might want to shy away from the food a little bit. That is not the case here at Pinchasers. The pizza's great, burgers. If you want to go old school, just get some chicken fingers, just something to munch on while you're in between games and stuff like that. They got great food there. The waiters and waitresses bring it right to you as well, too. You don't even have to get up. You can just sit down, enjoy yourself, maybe get those $1 Miller Lights. That's one of their deals that they have. And they'll bring the food right to you. And they have different deals literally every single day. They got all-you-can-eat pizza. They got all-you-can bowl. They got brunch specials on the weekend. So make sure you go to pinchasers.net to reserve a lane or book a party. And as you see on the screen there as well, they have multiple locations. So pinchasers.net to go out with friends and or family to have a good time. Let's get into a couple of more questions here as we roll along on this Thursday edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Let's see what else we got going on here. Only time I know of is when Brady was on the late night show and chugged a glass of beer in like 1.5 seconds. I'm not sure. I'm reading through the comments. I don't know where the basis of this conversation started, but yeah, that video is also another like pretty viral video of Tom Brady chugging a beer like very quickly. So he's just talented in all phases of life, whether it's playing in the NFL, whether it's dominating on the golf course, drinking beer, starting a brand, like everything Tom Brady does, it just works. The TB12 method, which actually I believe there's one very close to Pinchasers. The TB12 method, you go to TB12, so yeah. It's pretty good. You like it?
I give them my money. Yeah, actually, because I mean, for some people that know, I instruct outside of my sports broadcasting career, and this girl had hip flexors like a hockey player, which is not a compliment. So yeah, TB12 squad helped me out over there, and my roommate too. So she's a consistent TB12er to get a pliability. They're very high on the pliability, and that is the method to their madness between nutrition and everything else. So I'm a fan, not a bandwagon fan, but I'm actually a genuine fan. But I know people are still probably throwing things in the comments from when I was like, show me a time Tom Brady was funny before Tampa.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sorry. So this podcast just moves along so much. I'm like, all right, I already like thinking to the next, comment or
to sum Tom Brady up in a pretty little bow so that we don't have to go any further with it. Tom Brady is David Beckham. And
they saw each other at the stadium last year too. It was after a game.
Yeah.
I don't remember because for part of the season they only allowed like a certain amount of media because of like COVID protocols. But there was a picture of like, and I saw it too. I'm not sure if you saw it. You might have still been up in the press box, but yeah, it was Brady saying hi to David Beckham. I think Gronk was over there too, but Gronk was hurt at the time.
Yeah, as a girl that grew up playing soccer, I was very saddened to know that David Beckham was in the building and Barrett nowhere near me. But I think that Tom Brady's just going to kind of do what Beckham did, start building out those brands, those empires. He's probably going to own a team down the line, like how Bex owns International Miami FC and all of that. So if you want to know how Tom Brady's life is going to unfold, just go hop and follow David Beckham.
Good question here from Ben. He says, have you guys discussed the safety situation? Still feel we need a true strong safety behind Neal in case of injury. So this is an interesting thing because we spoke to a lot of the Bucs defensive coaches the other day. And I don't want to say by far, but definitely my favorite assistant coach to speak to was Nick Rapone, who is the safeties coach. He goes very in-depth with a lot of things. And so I asked him something about Mike Edwards because Mike Edwards is a fun player to watch. He's a playmaker. He had the 2 pick sixes against Atlanta. He had 3 on the season, plus another interception in the playoffs against the Eagles. So he's a creative guy. He's going to make plays for you. But with that said, the Bucs have never really trusted him in terms of being a full-time starter. Now, granted, you had Jordan Whitehead there as well, too, to go next to Antoine Winfield Jr., so it wasn't like they had no other talent there, and it was like, why isn't Mike Edwards getting this opportunity? But Jordan Whitehead is with the Jets now. So here's the window of opportunity for Mike Edwards. So I asked Nick Rapone, I said, do you trust Mike Edwards, or what does he have to do in order to earn your trust? And he said, he had an interesting take. He said, I trust Mike more now than he has in the past. And he was like, listen, this guy plays a quarter of the snaps and gets all the interceptions in the secondary. But when it came to Mike Edwards in terms of becoming a starter, he said Mike Edwards can do everything on the back end, coverage, interceptions, knocking the ball away. It really came down to the tackling. He needs to see more tackling, open field tackling from Edwards. And I thought that was really interesting, too, now that I think about it more, because one of Jordan Whitehead's best traits was lining up at the line of scrimmage, being a heat-seeking missile, annihilating whoever had the ball. And the Bucs don't need another guy that's just going to, drill every opponent that they have. As long as you make the tackle, and Rapone said this too in another question, as long as you make the tackle, that's all we need. Sure, it's cooler and there's more emphasis when you really just knock someone hard and everyone goes, oh my God. But at the end of the day, Edwards, that's like the big thing that the coaching staff is going to be looking for him to start at strong safety. And for Winfield Jr., he's getting close to the level of elite, in a very short amount of time. And Rapone said that for good players and great players, and I think Winfield Jr. will get to that great player status, you still got to challenge yourself. So they're challenging him now to get more interceptions. Obviously, Edwards does what he does in that department.
Right.
He wants Antoine Winfield Jr. to get 6 or 7 interceptions. That's a lot in a season. But if you want to be an elite player, that's what you got to do.
Absolutely. First of all, great question, Matt. I'm so glad that you asked that, because
thank you.
Some of the conversations that we've had throughout the season, I throw a temper tantrum because I want more picks and I want more speed. Is it too much to ask, guys? Well, I think the Bucs are hearing my cry a little bit, because now we've got a little bit more speed that will be there eventually. But for Edwards, I mean, it's a resounding phrase from the entire team, from the coaching staff to the players. The guy is a ball hawk. And I appreciate him because he is one of the few people that are getting the interceptions that I would love to see out there. So I think that he's going to step into a bigger role. I love the fact that Rapone said, thinking of that now, because you kind of have to reflect on how much he stepped up throughout the seaseason, how much him and Jamel Dean stepped up. I mean, Dean was working some injuries, but even with those injuries, it's somewhat promising to see what Jamel Dean can turn into, kind of getting that attention as a potential starter, that respect as a potential starter. I kind of have a theory here sometimes that players kind of amount to where they think their cap is, where they think their limit is. And sometimes that limit is created by what you feel, the vibe that you get from your coaching staff or the people around you. So if people start treating you like you can be an elite athlete, as you said for Antoine Winfield Jr., then he's going to kind of have this mentality that he has further to go to step into. You can have your own goal, but you don't realize how the support system around you can kind of phase that. So I think now that people are looking at Dean and Mike Edwards as, more than just this backup or this fill-in, you're going to get a chip on their shoulder to say, hey, I can do more. I can fill more of a role. I can provide that, ball hawk, that interception guy, that tackler guy. I can do that role better. So I think we're going to see a different stride out of Mike Edwards, and I have a whole nother level of respect from him from the things that he did this season. But yes, tackling was a major gross issue this past season. They need to figure it out. At some points, I was tweeting in all caps, like, can these guys put duct tapes on their gloves and make tackles? Will that help? Like, snatch a shoelace or something. But the missed tackles has to for sure be a correction. I just think if it's a focus in the offseason and it's something that's spoken about and these guys feel like they're more respected in that role, then I think that it'll happen. Now, with Neil being there, Neil's on a 1-year deal, correct?
Yes, him and Logan Ryan.
Right.
Also, I emphasize Ryan because I'm going to mix up Logan Ryan, Logan Hall 1,000 times. So I apologize in advance.
I'm going to be about that too. So yes, with Logan Ryan as an addition and Keanu Neal, the thing is that Neil has won some pretty big battles to be a starter when he was on the Falcons. He was playing in a different role with the Cowboys. So I think the Bucs are going to just want to see what he's going to do in their system. But when he's given the right role, he's actually quite productive, and he does well in that safety position. And Antoine Winfield Jr. around between strong safety and elsewhere. So if there's anything we've learned about this Bucs coaching staff, this Bucs defensive group, is that they love versatility. And then in walks Logan Ryan. I almost said Hall. And
it's nice.
Ryan, you can kind of pop around in a few other places as well. So if they need to add him in safety and use him there. So I don't think that they're going to really feel a sense of urgency at the safety position just yet. I think they're going to get through this season, reevaluate after that, because Keanu Neal's how old? He's still 20.
He's still young. I think he's 26, which is crazy to think because he's been in the league for a while.
I know. I swear his name has been going for forever. But he was one of the first Pro Bowl interviews I've ever done.
Oh, no kidding.
Guy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's very work-oriented. You can see it. Man, a few words. But super nice guy. But circling back to that, thinking of his age, if Keanu comes into the system, plays well, plays strong, and shows these Bucs that, you know, he belongs in their system, then you're looking at a contract extension or a whole different contract for him. So I think the safety situation is just, let's get through this season right now and reevaluate in the offseason. And I think almost everybody, if not definitely me, I am rooting for a way stronger draft class next year, because this draft class was also kind of that after COVID, being a fifth year, sixth year senior, playing on different schedules, not playing a full season, maybe not playing a season at all. It was just so weird because of COVID. So I do cut this draft class a lot of slack, but it just wasn't as exciting as previous years before. Usually I nerd out a lot more when it comes to the draft, and I just couldn't really gauge a focus with this one. So I think that they're just going to want to wait and see what happens next draft year, and then rely on Logan Ryan, put him where they need him at the moment, and Keanu Neal being that safety for them as well.
I think it helps too that the Bucs draft so late, so it's like harder to get as interested, because like, all right, well, whatever they do, they're still going to win the division and like make a run in the playoffs. But the secondary as a whole is very fascinating, because you have a ton of players, and you mentioned a lot of them. A lot of players are on one-year deals or in the last year of their contracts.
Yep.
Edwards, Jamel Dean, SMB, Ryan and Neal both signed one-year deals, so ipso facto, it's a contract year. So you're really just looking at Carlton Davis at corner and Antoine Winfield Jr. at safety in terms of, okay, these guys are the future. Like, we have them for more than one season. And I'll go back to Nick Rapone. He pretty much established that Keanu Neal and Logan Ryan are more security blankets in terms of it's Edwards' job at strong safety. But if things don't go according to plan, Neal can play safety. He said Ryan can also play safety, but they're also going to use him at corner, nickel corner as well too. Which that's of course if things don't work out with Sean Murphy bunting. So there's a lot on the line for plenty of these safeties this year. So it should be really fun to watch. There's a lot going on there. Another comment here from Pagan Troll, but his comment isn't really trolling, so I don't know what he's trolling about. He said, Leonard! Obviously going back to our Leonard Fournette bit. Leonard! Run to the right! That Shaq Mason signing was really underrated. That dude is a stud. I believe Tom Brady beat Logan Mankinson in a chugging contest. So the chugging contest is very much a theme of today's podcast on Cinco de Mayo, nonetheless. But to address the Shaq Mason part, I think that kind of just gets forgotten. Like, oh, okay, we got Shaq Mason, we're good to go.
Yeah.
For a fifth rounder, which many people are saying, and Pewter report as well too, that like Shaq Mason is a better offensive lineman than Alex Kappa. So they only gave up a fifth rounder for him. Plus, he's less expensive than what Alex Kappa's deal is signing with the Cincinnati Bengals. And you already solidify your starting right guard, when that was a big question going to the season with Kappa leaving, and obviously on the other side, left guard Ali Marpet leaving. I mean, this could go down in terms of trades. Like the JPP trade is up there for Jason Light as one of the best trades he's ever made.
Absolutely.
In terms of, and now the Gronk thing is different because it was like, okay, Brady's here. Gronk only wants to play with Brady. Gronk kind of forced the issue more with the Patriots. It wasn't like the Patriots were really looking to give up Gronk. Gronk was already retired. So that's a different category of its own. But other than the JPP trade, we'll see what happens this year. If that Shaq Mason trade really could go down as one of the best moves that Jason Light made in terms of trading, like Shaq Barrett, without question, best free agency signing. But that was free agency. We're talking strictly about trades here. So I think it's a good point. The Shaq Mason might not be your top headline given what else went on this offseason, but it was a necessity to get this thing done.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, again, Tom Brady's been in this league forever. So not only is he somebody who's going to accomplish more this season because of his competitive nature and who he is, but when you have a guy like that personally selecting people to be a part of this team, I think it just speaks volumes and tells you that you have things to look forward to out of these players. So he's the one that wanted Shaq Mason. He's the one that wanted I almost said the wrong name. These guys' names are getting so close. Gage. Russell Gage. I want to call everybody Logan now. There's so many Logans. So yeah, you got Tom Brady picking up the phone, Russell Gage, and calling Shaq Mason and kind of giving his 10 cents behind these trades or free agency pickups or so on and so forth. So underrated. I'm definitely hearing a lot about the fact that he's underrated. I'm hearing about how much he really has to offer on the field, and I'm hearing a big silent push that says that Tom Brady has a lot of trust in Shaq Mason on the line, and that he's going to be a huge, great addition for the Bucs.
Yeah, Pagan says that his name derives from a Scandinavian mythology. I'm nowhere close to trolling. Pretty cool. Another question here from James. He says, Gronk or Sue? Any word? Good question here. And Scott's been very talkative about this. He said if he was going to bet on which player is more likely to come back to the Bucs, he would say it's Rob Gronkowski. And I agree with that too. Gronk only wants to play with Tom Brady. He's not going anywhere else. It's either retirement or continuing to play. And I think the fact that, and we don't know what Brady is going to decide after the season, but if we're under the speculation that Brady's only going to play for one more year, I think behind the scenes, he's probably being like, come on, Rob, it's just one more year. It's just one more, and then you can go into retirement. And Gronk's in another situation like Brady, too, where he has all the accolades, he has the championships, and he makes a lot of money outside of football as well, too. So he doesn't need to play. But I could see Gronk coming back for one more year because of that, where Sue, another player that doesn't have to play because of the accolades, he got that Super Bowl, but he wants the right money to come back and play as well, too, where I don't think the Bucs and Ndamukong Suh have met in the middle yet. I think Sue still wants to play. The Bucs would still like Sue, but they're not going to go over a certain number because their roster is talented enough. And obviously you have to stay under the salary cap. And that's also why you see Logan Hall getting drafted with their first pick, second round pick, but with the Bucs' first pick overall. And that's why they went with Logan Hall. So what do you think, Gronk or Sue first?
I'm going to go with you on the Gronk deal. I think Gronk just loves playing with Tom, and, he's going to figure it out. I think a lot of it, too, just, they got Tom Brady's deal just about sorted out. Gronk's going to probably have to figure out what his incentives and his perks are going to be in order to come back and what games that's going to be a part of. So I definitely see a Gronk return before a Sue return. Now, an unfavorable opinion, I kind of rather have Sue back over Gronk, even though I know Gronk is huge, especially middle of the field, those big plays. He's going to be a great mentor to those new tight ends that are being added to the roster. But if you look at tape and you just see some of those double teams and that brick wall that Sue has been, it's kind of nerve-wracking to see, what the developmental stage of a guy coming in and Sue is going to be, because we still don't have there's still question marks around some other depth on the D-line when it comes to Nacho, McClendon, and all these other guys. So security blanket-wise on the defense, I have such a respect for Ndamukong Suh and what he does on the field and on that line. So selfishly, I would love to see Shaq, but I think you're right. He comes at a higher price. He's now a dad of twins. They are really situating their life in Oregon, where be the minute that he wraps up his career, and where they are every off season as soon as they're done. I think he even has like a restaurant out there too that he just started up. So he's got this post-football life going on. So I think for him, if he's going to put his body on the line, he's going to do it for a price. And the Bucs are in a tight space when it comes to that. So I would see Gronk coming back before Sue.
It was funny. He made a cameo on the show Ballers. That was with The Rock, where The Rock's like,
I loved that show. I didn't.
Oh, you watched it? Awesome.
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah, I thought it was good. The first couple seasons were good. The last one, when he's like fighting the NCAA, that kind of got a little convoluted. He's getting into skating and stuff like that. But anyway, there's a lot of Bucs cameos on that show, former and current Bucs. JPP was on it briefly. Deshaun Jackson was on it. And Dominic Sue was on the show. And his storyline, he was only in like an episode or two, but his storyline is that he bought a restaurant in Miami. He was on the Dolphins at the time. I don't think any player, maybe JPP, no player at the time was actually on the Bucs, like when they made their cameo on Ballers. But that's just a fun fact. But anyway, if you could bet on whether Gronk or Sue is going to come back to the Bucs first, the perfect place to go and bet on that would be MyBookie. That's right. MyBookie.ag is another sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. We get them, of course, during the NFL season. We got them here today, too. And as you see, there's a big UFC fight coming up this Saturday, UFC 274. I believe the main event is Charles Oliveira against Justin Gaethje for the title. So big fight there. I'm a big fan of the UFC, not just the main guys as well, too. Sometimes the undercards are even better than like the main event or the pay-per-view itself, too. But if you go to MyBookie, there are so many different options. Like, we're at a great time of the year for sports. The Kentucky Derby is coming up on Saturday. You have playoff hockey. Bet on the Bolts to win at home tomorrow. Bet on the Penguins to win tonight, playing against the Rangers. They won that first game triple overtime, so I think both teams are going to be exhausted. But you have the NBA playoffs as well, too. Baseball, the best bet in all sports is first inning, no runs. You literally just bet on no one to score in the first inning. And I know baseball can be extremely long. So you just bet that first inning. You can watch that and then go about your day, see whether or not you won. I'm sure they got futures right now as well, too, on who's going to win the division. Bet on the Bucs to do that. But yeah, UFC 274 is big. Maybe bet on one of those prop bets of a fighter to win by knockout. And make sure you use the promo code Pewter to get up to a $1,000 welcome bonus. That's mybookie.ag, promo code Pewter. You got the UFC, there's boxing, basketball, football, hockey, literally any sport you want. You could bet on golf, too, if you wanted to, tennis. Maybe they'll get pickleball on there. Logan Ryan is a big pickleball fan. I'm a big pickleball fan myself, too. So mybookie.ag, place all of your bets right there. Casey, let's get into like one or two more questions and comments here, and then we will call the day. We are already over an hour, getting close to an hour and 10 minutes. So we appreciate everyone that has been on this podcast, chatting with us, giving your comments, giving your questions and concerns. There's not too many concerns with the Bucs overall because they're going to be competing for a title. Yeah, some people just like to
pod that people are going to come to and just hang. It's going to be Matt and I that we're just
the almost birthday twins. Our birthdays are a day apart.
One day apart.
Pisces gang, Pisces posse, whatever you want to call it. You know, we got that squad going here. Let's see who we got going on. Demon Murphy says, I feel this was a solid draft that we'll appreciate in a couple years. That's a good point there, because I think the problem with giving draft grades in general is we don't know how they're actually going to look in a couple of years. I mean, we can look at old drafts and be like, man, what were they thinking with this pick? Or, wow, they knocked it out of the park. They hit a home run with this one. So it's tough to really grade in the moment. But I agree with Demon Murphy that a couple of years from now, I think we'll be saying maybe there's not like a stud superstar, but they got guys of value and depth and just brought an importance to this team that they needed at the time.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, that's really what drafting's all about. You're looking for the players that are going to make an impact either right away. Those are those elite guys, as you kind of alluded to when it comes to Antoine Winfield Jr. But the other ones, you're just hoping to see them make gradual, progressive strides. Season 1, season 2, season 3. That's Tyler Johnson. He's just not one of those guys. So that's where you would kind of be like, holy crap, what happened here? But I think that O-line wise, I mean, Luke Gadecki, like I said, I'm excited to see this guy play. I think he's somebody that you'll look down the line and be like, solid draft pick. Logan Hall, same thing. Punter, as long as we have some consistency and the accuracy, which that was something that was talked about when people were kind of shocked about adding Karan to the Bucs roster, is they were saying, don't underestimate this guy. He's got lethal accuracy, which is something that, as you pointed out, Matt, is really underrated and should be paid more attention to. So I agree. Down the stretch here, let's see what the conversation is come, 2024?
Yeah, I don't even want to
this draft.
I don't even want to think that far ahead.
Yeah.
That sound like Frank Ocean.
I will say,
I'm not going to sing it, but yeah.
O'Keefe, I forgot him. But another glass eater. I am psyched to see this dude, because first of all, being taught football by my dad and the way that I was raised, a true grit tight end puts his hand in the dirt and knows how to freaking block. He knows how to shake a guy up. He basically is just like a monster. And then he can happen to catch a few passes here and there. So he's got reliable enough hands for those short passes. But when he comes off the line, he comes off with a vengeance. So I'm excited to see the redheaded devil just go nuts out there next to, the rest of the squad. So if I had somebody to be excited about equally, or if not more, than O'Keefe, I can't wait to see what his role is going to be and how he dominates alongside the rest of the squad.
Yeah, shout out to Joel for this comment. It's supposed to be O'Keefe is going to help us a lot this year. Dude is a beast. I think he's going to be in a ton of situations where he'll be the second or third tight end, strictly in there for blocking. But as you talked about, the glass eaters, he's part of that group. Another nasty, mean player, going to get in your face, try to dominate you. I think he's going to be a great fit for this team. Shout out Josh S., the nickname, as we were saying. Chief Keef, that's what he's going to be called. And yeah, he could be playing fullback. The Bucs have used a lot. You see, no more traditional fullbacks anymore, but what you will see are tight ends lining up in the backfield, as you were talking about a little bit too. Cam Brate did that a little bit, and we love Cam Brate. He's important to this team, but he's not really a blocking tight end. He shouldn't be in that role of the fullback in the backfield. So Chief Keef, put him back there. Let him just smash heads.
Was Danny a fullback, or am I making that up?
Danny Vitale?
Yeah. Or was he a linebacker?
Might have been.
I don't know why I pictured him as a fullback. I just think that he was a fullback.
Yeah. Joel, again, we're going to have a top 10 running game this year with Bruce Arians out, but it's Byron Leftwich still calling the play, so I don't know how much that'll change. And we'll end with James Thomas here. He said he's talking about Tom Brady. The pass to Mike Evans in the Rams game or Grayson in the Jets game was no duck. Tom Brady's arm is fine. That is nothing to worry about. He passed the ball. He passed the football, I think, more than most quarterbacks in the league. Had no issues there, no wear and tear. He's still going to keep chucking the ball, keep throwing it. It's not going to stop him because he's on that TB12 method, and he's still going to dominate because he's Tom Brady. He's TB12.
And he is pliable.
And extremely pliable. All right, folks. This has been a great show. Over an hour and 12 minutes. Thank you, everyone, for watching, commenting, hitting the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the like button. Tell your friends to tell a friend to subscribe. It really helps us with the algorithm and getting more of our content, our information out there. We got the long-form podcast. We got podcast clips from episodes. And we got Inside the Bucs as well, too, on our YouTube playlist, where we have things going on at the facility, whether it's Jason Light, Todd Bowles, different players. We had Tristan Wirfs there last week, Keanu O'Neal, different guys like that. We'll have Brady
coming up.
I'm sorry?
Rookie minicamp coming up.
Yeah, rookie minicamp is coming up next week. We'll talk to the offensive coordinators as well. So still a lot of great information. Of course, go to pewterreport.com as well, too. Kay Huddy, thank you so much. I know how busy you are between the Lightning and your move and getting your whole self and house and apartment life situated. So I thank you guys. Thank you, everyone, for watching another episode of the Pewter Report podcast. And we will see you on Monday for a whole brand new week of Bucs football. Out. Be good to your mother. No, be nice to your mother. Out.